Welcome to the Loaded Cannon, a new season, a new Arsenal. That is the most important thing. This time last year, we were away from home on a Friday evening opening game of the new Premier League season in the London derby, and we absolutely bottled it last year. We weren't prepared, we got out-muscled, we got out-fought, and today we've gone and done the job. 2-0 defeat last year, 2-0 victory this year, and I hope that it's a sign of things to come in terms of the result. Now, obviously, we'll get into the analysis of the game, but listen, man, I'm very, very relieved that we went and got the 3 points, because I almost had this like horrible feeling after doing so well in pre-season that it would be such a typical Arsenal thing to do, to go in, mess up the first game of the Premier League season, and all of that pre-season promise would just evaporate. And, I think fans would then be questioning whether the games in pre-season really mean anything or not. And for me, I saw some really good things in pre-season, so I was desperate for them to come and be shown in the first competitive Premier League game. And you know what? It was a weird one. It's a really weird game to analyse, because we started off brilliantly. And I think the way Arsenal started off, especially Gabriel Jesus, we looked so good, so comfortable, so dominant, that at that point in the game, I think if Arsenal fans were asked, what do you think the score is going to be, it would have been like 2-0 would have been a minimum, would have been an absolute minimum. Martinelli had a very easy early chance that somehow he didn't score. And then from a set piece, Zinchenko peels off, and what seemed like a really, really well-rehearsed corner routine. And I've got to praise Nicolas Jover as well, because I did on many occasions last year single him out for praise. And already in the first game of the season, I'm going to do it again, because it's just a continuation of what I saw from last year. I hope he got a pay rise over the summer, because, and I'm glad actually Sky Sports, they put the camera on him, they put his name up on the screen, and they gave him his moment in the sun, because he really has had a big impact for Arsenal when it comes to set pieces. And also, I like the coverage, depending on what broadcaster you're watching this on, but Sky Sports, what they did, they showed this 5-second clip of what Arsenal did from that corner. Ben White and Zinchenko were both on the edge of the box. Zaha was sort of doing a one-man marking two job on both of those people, so he couldn't really pick both up. He was trying to split the two. And all that happened, Zinchenko came into the box. As soon as the ball was kicked, White backed off into a more defensive position, because it looked like actually we were quite susceptible to the counter-attack. But Ben White, clearly his job was to be that last line of defence. It is still slightly risky, because it's very, very high up the pitch to almost sell that dummy to Zaha. But it worked a treat on this occasion. Zaha peeled back to the far post in acres of space. He had so much time to see that ball coming. I mean, Palace, awful defending. You'd think someone would be a little bit more alert, even though they're doing zonal marking, to run out to that ball and try and deal with it, or at least to put pressure on Zinchenko. But they just stood and watched. Good header back. And Martinelli, just like his first chance, actually, even in the goal that he scored, his second chance, didn't connect brilliantly, but all of that good work before it was enough to make sure that he was in such a good position that he was able to score the goal. But the interesting thing is, we scored that goal, and we scored a goal which was an own goal from good work from Bukayo Saka. And even before that, good work from Eddie Nketiah to come deep, pick up the ball, and then spray the ball out wide and isolate Saka against his defender. But when you look at the game, for the way it started and how good it looked and felt at the start and all the dominance at the start, we actually didn't create a lot in open play at all. And that has got to be a bit of a worry. There was one moment I can think of an open play where Gabriel Jesus, again brilliant in the second half, absolutely relentless work, wins the ball that he shouldn't have won, played a really good pass to Ødegaard, and Ødegaard, honestly, has got to be so much better in that situation. Seemed to not really know what he wanted to do with the ball. But when you're in the area, 10 yards out, the ball's come across. I mean, there's only one thing to do. That's one area of Ødegaard's game he's going to seriously need to improve, because it seems to me like, given that he's got the club captaincy now, that decision between Ødegaard and Smith Rowe, Ødegaard is now Arteta's preferred choice in that role. He's got to try and do what we need him to do if we want to be a serious team this year and hit double digits. Certainly in terms of goal contributions, but it's moments like that, just let fly. There's nothing else that you need to do other than just let your foot go through that ball and test the goalkeeper. At that point, it was 1-0, and the game got very, very tetchy. There was a point where I was really worried in that game. Had Odegaard done that in that moment and scored a goal, it calms all the nerves. Instead, we had to wait a lot longer and sort of got a bit of luck from Bukayo Saka and the own goal that we got for the second. But yeah, other than that, put it in the comments below. Can you think of much else that we did in open play to try and carve out a really good chance? Listen, as an Arsenal fan, I feel like we deserve the win. I do. But as a Palace fan, I think they can point to a lot of stats. We wouldn't have thought this in the first sort of like 15, 20, 30 minutes of opening dominance that Arsenal had. But Palace had more attempted passes, more successful passes, better pass completion rate. They had more possession overall in the entire game. The second half was domination. And I heard Patrick Vieira's comments at half-time where he talked about how Palace ended the last 10 minutes of the first half and said we need to keep that tempo, that intensity, increase our pressing in the second half. And they did everything that Patrick Vieira wanted. And actually, they did have a couple of chances in open play that, thankfully for us, they didn't manage to finish off. And Ramsdale deserves a lot of credit as well, because it was a bit of a mixed bag for him today. Some really good claims of the ball when we needed him to do that. Some brilliant saves, especially from Eze when Zaha just cut through our defence. Eze really should have scored, and Ramsdale came charging out and did brilliantly. Also a brilliant save from a header as well in the first half, and then got up quickly to go and smother the ball. So all in all, Ramsdale, though he did some really good things, he also created a bit of nerves. And it's one of those things where I feel like he needs to be more of a calming influence on Arsenal when we are winning a game. When we're not, I get that you're going to want the game to be a bit more sort of emotional, but when you are winning a game, you want control. And I don't feel like we managed to exercise that real control over the game, and Ramsdale was part to blame in terms of how Palace came into the game, because they feed off the fans, especially at Selhurst Park, some of the best home fans in the Premier League. And I felt like Ramsdale needed to be a bit more of a calming influence. Some of his distribution and that sort of thing actually gave us the jitters a little bit. But anyway, overall, he did really well, kept us in the game, had a really, really important part to play. The other person I want to give some special praise to is, no, not Saliba, he'll come at the end, but Ben White. Last season against Brentford, Ben White was chucked into the mix and he came out with a lot of criticism. He would have been, the similarities of last season's opening fixture and this season's opening fixture wouldn't have been lost on him. And he would have been thinking to himself, man, here I am up against Wilfried Zaha, who I think showed his quality. I thought he was so good. And people trying to say like, oh, he had Ben White on the ropes, or even other people trying to say Ben White pocketed Zaha. Neither of those things are true. I think it was a real good battle between those two. And Ben White, given the context of what happened last season and the criticism he got for not being, powerful enough, aerially dominant enough against Ivan Toney and that sort of thing, he had a completely different challenge on the opening game this year, but I thought he did really, really well against Zaha. It was very clear that he was going to get a yellow card, don't get me wrong, but overall I thought he did really, really well against what is one of the Premier League's most tricky wingers. So Ben White, great job, especially out of position. And now we come on to William Saliba. Listen, the next car that Rolls-Royce produce, they need to call the Rolls-Royce Saliba. Enough with the Phantom, Wraith, Ghost and Cullinan. I want to see the Rolls-Royce Saliba, because he is a Rolls-Royce defender. Listen, I know he's not the eminent Rolls-Royce defender in the Premier League. That is obviously Virgil van Dijk, and there's a few good ones at Man City. But for his Premier League debut, given his age, Saliba looked absolutely brilliant, imposing, athletic, dominant, pacey. I loved the performance. Absolutely loved the performance from him. And you know what? It's a real difficult question to answer as to, have Arsenal played everything that happened prior to this date, with his loan to perfection, or actually was it an error? When you look at how well he's done in Liga for Marseille, winning Young Player of the Year, and now coming into this Arsenal team and looking good in pre-season in his first game, some people might say actually he's been brilliant and he's been dealt with brilliantly. I think the reality is it's somewhere in between that, because Saliba actually did go on record and say that he was only given 24 hours to prove himself. So I think no matter what happened, it might have worked for us, but the communication and the way he was treated could have been better. My big worry though, I just hope that at the end of this season he signs a new contract, because at the end of the season he's only got 1 year remaining, and I want to see him at the heart of Arsenal's defence for many, many years. Now, other players, I think Thomas Partey had a very quiet and effective game in the middle. Granit Xhaka, the yellow card, I mean, he loves the yellow card. Other than that, he did quite well. Martinelli and Saka, well, actually, Martinelli in the second half, barely even noticed him. Thankfully, he made an impact in the game in the first half. And Saka, I think, constantly was able to isolate a Palace defender and be a threat. And Saka's always got that in his locker. Overall, I'm happy. And I'd love to see what you guys think in the comments below. Do you think Arsenal deserve that 2-0 win, given how much we fell off in the second half? And is that second half performance of any concern to you? Because if it wasn't for the first half, if I just saw the second half, bloody hell, that was Palace domination and they were in the ascendancy. This game could have been very, very different. Arsenal got the rub of the green. And the reason why I think we did is because even though Palace had most of the ball and the passing and all that sort of stuff, it was Arsenal in the duels. And that's what I often say. As long as you win your duels against your man on an individual basis, the team performance can often just come together and you'll get the rub of the green. That's exactly what happened today. Let me know in the comments if you agree with my assessment of the game or if you disagree. And as ever, I want to get on the road to 50,000 subscribers. So as ever, please do subscribe if you haven't already. And before you go, like this video. I'll see you next time. Arsenal are top of the league. Take care.